Hi there. Welcome to the Lighthouse Sessions. This is actually a bonus episode, and I'm releasing it without further ado. This is me, and I'm going to show you how I personally create custom GPTs. Now, first of all, you're probably wondering, why do I care? And that's a very valid question. And the reason I started getting crazy and obsessed with custom GPTs is that they will do something specific and they do it very well if they're properly set up. Now, having said that, if they're properly set up is critical. Now, I'm going to say something. This is an unpopular opinion. But if somebody comes to me and says that GPT, especially ChatGPT, is stupid or useless or writes bad, I'm sorry, but that tells me everything I need to know about you as a human, as a writer, as a creator. So the thing is, it is the poor craftsman that blames their tools. And I would say the same about ChatGPT. Now, for the record, it is obvious that I use ChatGPT to write my stuff. However, it is always my stuff. And what I mean by that is I've taught ChatGPT to give me little icons. I've told it to preserve the M dash because I like it. All of the tells where people say, oh, you can tell somebody's using AI. I'd be more worried about people who aren't. And what I mean by that is, and by the way, I saw somebody in the AI space who said that AI is making us dumber. I would argue that AI is the opportunity. Iron sharpens iron. And if we use AI correctly, it can help us be better humans and better at what we do. So if you're in the first camp where you think AI is stupid, congratulations, you're right. Please move on. If you're in the camp where you're either curious about what AI can do or you believe that AI can be a great thing, you're in the right place. Welcome. Let's have a conversation. So back to custom GPTs, I'm going to argue that if you're not using them, you're using ChatGPT wrong. Now, in Gemini, they have something called gems, very, very similar. But the reality is, if you think about a custom GPT, it is just a process for completing a task. Now, once upon a time, I used to create generalist GPTs, and it got a little crazy because the more I asked it to do, the less it did these things well. And of course, it became a generalist. So it was kind of good at a lot of things, not great at any one thing. So this is excessive. I'm going to share this with you just once. I'm not going to make you memorize it. But believe it or not, I have, let me check, last count, I have 407 custom GPTs. Now, that's just, I do a lot of things. Every single one of these is, and here's the entire list. And if you want to see their picture, this is my favorite, Al Einstein. You may recognize him. He looks a little familiar. This is Sun Tzu. We're going to be talking to these two today. But yes, I have imaginary friends. I play with them. And here they are. Each one of them is a specialist at one thing. They do one thing really well. And the other thing I want to say is I'm the grown-up here. I know what done well looks like. I can challenge them. So I'm not saying do things that you don't know about. But what I'm doing is these are things I'm okay at or I'm good at. And what this does is it amplifies that to make it better. So without further ado, I'm going to jump in and show you how I create a custom GPT. Now, to be clear, I can do this manually. However, what I found was I created one named Merlin. I made him up. His name is Merlin Polymathicus. He sounds Latin. He's not. But basically Merlin, and I guess it's only fair, let's give you the face to go with that name. Where is Merlin? He's here somewhere. There he is. So this is Merlin. Okay. And basically what I did was I trained Merlin on how I create custom GPTs. And the reason I did that, I'm capable of doing it myself. However, Merlin, this is his entire job. So he knows what I like. And this comes back to, if you do something repeatedly, why wouldn't you create a process to do it? So if you have trouble with the concept of custom GPTs, think of it as I've created a process and I've built an AI model that will help me do it better. Now, for the record, a lot of visionary entrepreneurs, you have teams, great. Help your teams build custom GPTs so that they can do the work they do faster, better, and to a standard. So I'm not going to get into the specifics of all of this. I want this to be a short, quick video. But basically, I have an avatar, an ideal client that I serve. And so every model that I build is built specifically to use language, my branding, my story, specifically for that audience. And if it sounds like me, it's because it is based on my biases, my preferences. I want to work with people I like, and who better than people who think and act like I do. So I'm very, very niched. People will tell me all the time, I'm too niched. I disagree, and that's okay. So let's talk about how I create, and I'm not going to share the exact copy and paste. If you want that, you can direct message me and ask for it. But really, truly, I'm going to share how I build a custom GPT. And I want you to pay attention to what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So I'm a weirdo. I like to have fun. So I always say something funny or nice or kind to my model. I know Sam Altman doesn't want us to be wasting time with manners, but I get better results when I'm nice. So, and more importantly, when I'm working, I want to have fun. Merlin is one of my coworkers, therefore I'm going to be kind to him. So basically what I've done, and this, there's going to be a detailed training later. So, this is a fast forward sort of through it. I give background to Merlin and I say, here's what I'm going to call it. Here's what I'm going to do. And I'll show you this soul doc. So that's my language. And basically what I do is for every AI model I create, I have a soul doc. So this is so I can always come back. I can make updates. So the first thing I always do is put the ChatGPT conversation in where I am training it. So then I can go back and say, I'd like to tweak it a little. But basically Sun Tzu is, and by the way, don't use live people who are current and in existence, because you get into copyright and AI does not like that. You violate terms of service. I'm using the name Sun Tzu because he's been dead for about 3,000 years, and I'm hoping he's not going to come back and haunt me. But this is just my reminder that this model is based on Sun Tzu. So the very first thing I do is I ask for the expert categories who can help me understand what this role is going to be. So what I do is I go over here, and you can do what you like. I like to use level H1 headings, and I use hashtags so that later I can come back. So the very first thing I always ask after I give it the background, I ask, who are the expert categories that can guide us? So in this case, it came up with strategists, game theory, warfare, yada, yada. And I'm not reading this to you. I'll share this link if you want to actually read the whole conversation. But the other thing I wanted came up with a parking lot. So Merlin likes to jump ahead, and I always have to say, okay, let's come back. And basically what I then said is we're going to have an expert for each category. And Merlin's a little bit more complicated because we've got 2 levels of categories. And here we have, okay. Now, okay. So I'm going to copy this. Okay. He's a little bit more complicated because I've got general experts and then I've got experts in specific chapters. And for the record, some people don't like the art of war. I love it from a business perspective. And it's not about the war, it's about avoiding the battle and loss. So here we go. Now, I also have what I call a shadow expert. And basically, the shadow expert is the devil's advocate, the contrarian that's going to challenge our. So in this case, we have a monk of no war, the monk, who is going to challenge our expert. Okay. Okay, so this is. So again, normally I only have one layer of experts, but here we have both a horizontal and a vertical. So we have two layers, and we have the shadow. Basically, the shadow just challenges the expert. So now, okay, so now we've got best practices. So we've created our expert categories and our experts. Now, based on our expert categories and experts, we have our best practices. And what I'm doing, just in case you're wondering why I'm going to all this trouble, a lot of people would just sit down and say, well, do this and tell me this. What I'm doing is I'm narrowing the filters on what parts of the large language model we're using. So if I don't categorize it with expert categories and with experts, I'm saying, let's roll the dice and hope that the most common answers out there are correct. However, if you've ever spent more than a minute on TikTok or YouTube, you'll know that the loudest voices aren't always the brightest people. So what we're doing is we're eliminating a lot of the noise and we're filtering it to focus on the best of the best. Now, here we have some rituals. These are Merlin's words for Sun Tzu. And there we go. I use the word processes. And again, you don't need to watch me type all this. And what you don't see is I've actually read through all of this and I agree with it and I like how it's worded. If I don't like it, I'll ask questions. Okay, now we have some famous quotes. And this is just to give more character, more depth. This is optional. You don't have to do this. Oops. Hashtag quotes. Okay, and you'll see I use level H1. That way, there's a reason I'll show you that, but it's important. Okay, so these are quotes. And this is more robust. And I created a war room. This is way more robust than usual. Okay. Now, people always ask me, why do you use hashtags? So basically, hashtags, and two things. I use hashtags. It makes it easy to find. And I use something called camel case. And what that is I use the words without spaces, but I capitalize the first letter of each word. So the capitalized R is what makes this camel case, the capital W, the capital R. And the reason I use this is I can refer to it later or I can search and find it. So it just helps me find things. Now, the very last piece, I always create a system prompt. And then Now, this is a very detailed system prompt. Usually I'd make it much, much shorter. But something as epic as the art of war needs expertise, not brevity. So there we go. So the system prompt is what tells your AI what to do, how to do it, and all that wonderful stuff. Basically, what it's saying is use the expert categories, the experts, the best practices, and the process. And then the very last thing, I create a DALL-E prompt to create. Again, I keep all of this in a soul document so that I can edit it, refine it. But basically, if I had a drum roll, this would be the drum roll. This is what ChatGPT decided my avatar would look like. So I copy that image and I paste it here just so I have it. So again, if I'm working with somebody, I want to know who they are and make up stories about them. That's just the way I am. So this is Sun Tzu, or in this case, our version of Sun Tzu. Now, the last thing, I think that is Sun Tzu is complete. So now I'm going to show you how to actually give Sun Tzu life. Okay, so can you give our Sun Tzu a 2-word job description and a single sentence? Okay, so these are the last two pieces. Hopefully that wasn't too painful. So Sun Tzu is our strategic oracle, and because I have a lot, I track them. Okay, so now what we do, so we did all the prep work, and for what it's worth, real time, it takes me about 15 minutes. I have the paid version, the $20 a month, whatever it's called, the plus. And that's kind of, I think, the minimum requirement to create custom GPTs. So now what I do, you'll see I have a bunch of them here, but you go over to the left and where it says Explore GPTs, you click on that, and then you click on Create. Now, I use Canva to create name tags for all my people. And you can use, I use the free version. When I'm feeling up to it, I use the paid version, but honestly, most of what I do is capable, more than capably handled in the free. So here's my name, here's my name, and I just download, keep it really simple. Okay, download. Somewhere I have a folder for this. Huh. Yeah. We'll just leave it in the main. Okay. Okay, so we saved Sun Tzu, close that. So I put his face there. Oops. Okay, so Sun Tzu. Let's just copy and paste. Sun Tzu, comma, our Okay, so that's just for me. Now, we talked about the system prompts. Okay. So at this point, it's just a copy and paste exercise, which is great. Okay, and that gives us almost all of our functionality. But the very last thing I do is I download it as a Word document. I think you can directly connect it to Google, but I like to use a separate Word document. And now here you see it says upload files. And there is the Sun Tzu Soul document. And he's got all these capabilities. You can upload. So the other thing I do, I'll upload my avatar profile so that Sun Tzu knows exactly who he is writing for. My avatar is Alex Rivers, so I could upload that. I'm not going to right now because I want Sun Tzu to be someone that can talk to anyone. If I wanted him to create content for my avatar, then I would be specialist. Okay, so that is done. And now we hit create. And I share with other people. You can make this private, so only you see it. If you're a founder, for example, if you want your team using it, you can share the link. Or if you want to make it available to the masses, I don't bother because I haven't seen any monetary reason or any practical reason at all. But if you put stuff in the GPT store, you have to meet a lot of their use cases, and there's a lot of rules, but if you want to do it, do it. So I hit save, and anyone with the link. And then the last thing I do, I copy this, and I go back into my little soul document, and you'll see I have a custom link, and at the very end is his name, Sun Tzu. I also put it in my spreadsheet, so I can summon Sun Tzu from my spreadsheet. And I also put his job description. Now, if you hit View GPT, you can have a conversation going forward about the art of war. Now, the specific use case I created is I have a business plan that I do with my clients. We submit this business plan to Sun Tzu to ensure that it is, in fact, strategic. And the reason I do this is a lot of people think that tactics and strategy are interchangeable. They're not. Strategy is where you're going. Tactics is how you're going to get there. So what Sun Tzu does is he looks for tactical bias in our goals, because if we're too tactical in our goals, we're not necessarily going for the big picture. So that is the creation of Sun Tzu. I hope that was useful, and I welcome any questions. Thank you.